Buenas noches, amigos. Bienvenidos al Panteón Lucha Talk with El Nocturno. I want to apologize that it's taken me this long to throw out another episode. It's gotten really busy this summer. When you got kids and you have a home, you start getting very preoccupied with kids' activities and home projects. And by the time you get in, the motivation to come downstairs and record an episode and assure that it's going to be dead silent so you can do it, it gets a little hard. So I apologize um, that it's taking me so long between episodes. Uh, this is episode 4, and before I start episode 4, I want to issue a trigger warning because we are going to be talking about addiction and the effects it has on those it surrounds. Um, we're going to be talking about a lot of death, especially in pro wrestling and personal. So, if you are sensitive to the subject of addiction and or death and the effects of addiction, please viewer and listener discretion advised. I don't want to be responsible for uh, your terrible night. So, again, trigger warning: we are going to talk about addiction and the effects it has on those who are addicted and the loved ones around. What is addiction? Addiction is classified as a mental illness. And what a lot of people don't understand is, or maybe they do understand, but they just don't think about it, is that addiction is a lot more than that stereotypical junkie on the corner, scratching himself, asking and looking for his next high, asking you for spare change so he could go buy his next high. We have come a long way from that, amigos. And even then, in the 70s and 80s, when this whole stereotype really started, um, you know, we've come a long way from that to better understand the disease that is addiction and how to better treat it. So we are making leaps and bounds on actually helping people instead of casting them out from society and doing more damage than good. So it's classified as a mental illness. And like I said before, it's not just drugs, it's not just substance abuse. Obviously, that's a big one, right? That's one of the, I think, most common ones because that's chemicals affecting the brain. And brain, we love to be happy. And if we do things that make us happy, we're going to want to do it more and more and more. That's how it works. And not even just with addiction, with anything else, correct? Um, so you can also be addicted to behaviors like shoplifting. Believe it or not, a lot of people are addicted to shoplifting, and you can even do it the legal way. Addicted to shopping, right? There's severe, and there's a little less severe. Amazon people out there, Target people out there, right? For heaven's sake, I can probably build an entire cardboard city with the stuff we get from Amazon. I'm not saying my wife is addicted, but it is a form of addiction. The shopping, shoplifting, video games, guilty at one point. Guilty. Very and a very addictive personality where it has actually killed people, amigos. So don't throw that one out. Alcoholism. A lot of the times, an alcoholic is, I don't know why, but not put in the same category as an addict. Maybe because alcohol is illegal and very accessible. But one with one, two, three, four, five DUIs, I mean, you know, there's a problem there. Or every time you drink, you get mean and nasty, or you're doing it alone, or you're doing it in excess to the point where you're damaging your body beyond repair. A lot of people don't think about alcoholism as an addiction because I think it's free. It's not free. Sorry, it's available. It's legal. You don't have to meet in a back alley corner if you're 21 over here in the states and buy it. Um, And it's things that you could have one or two and be fine. I don't think you can have one or two doses of heroin and be fine, one or two bumps of cocaine and be fine. I don't know personally, but I'm assuming. A lot of this is opinion, guys, so please don't come after me in the comments. There is a fact that I'll be stating, and I hope you use your better judgment to differentiate fact and opinion. So there's a lot of gambling. That's a big one. There's a lot of things that people can be addicted to. I've known people addicted to gambling, me, video games, pornography, uh, addicted to all sorts of things. Some harmful, some not, but all have to do with that chemical imbalance in the brain that makes it so you need to have it, right? So that is addiction, amigos, and it affects more people than not. And the reason I decided to do an episode on addiction is a couple of reasons. One, I was sitting there doom scrolling, and one of those, wrestlers who died young popped up, and it was like kind of like a side scroll thing. And it really hit me that a lot of the wrestlers were under 40 years old, a lot of them under 30, but the majority under 40 years old. And it brought me back to an episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver that he did on the WWE that kind of covers that. If you haven't seen it yet, please go watch it. And John, if you ever hear this, shout out, amigo. I love you, man. But yeah, go watch it. It really opened my eyes. And then seeing this reel that I saw, kind of like, it's like, oh, yeah, that's right. You know, and as I think about the friends that I have that I've made in the lucha business and the wrestling business, there is a few out there that are sober because they were addicts at one point and they realized that, and now they're making leaps and bounds and bettering their lives. And the community, oh my God, the community is so supportive, myself included, so supportive of these guys who are taking a turn for the better and bettering their lives and sobering and doing something they love without having to indulge in their prior vices, even though I'm sure it's around and available, especially when we do a lot of these shows at breweries. A lot of breweries give us a free beer, and a lot of these guys who have given up alcohol, they do a really good job of saying no, sticking to water or whatever. So more power to them. You know who you are, amigos. Keep it up. We're behind you 100%. My own brother is sober. Very proud of him. A lot of my good friends are sober. A few of the guys at our gym are sober and doing a wonderful job of it. I'm very proud of you, amigos. Keep it up, and hope you go many years defeating that. Because it's a disaster. It's a disaster, and it's life altering. People lose everything because of it. Um, and this goes for gambling too. I mean, like I said, addiction is everywhere. So that's one of the reasons I decided to do this episode, is that I was watching a lot of these wrestlers die at a very young age, and a lot of it is accidental overdose, accidental overdose, accidental overdose, overdose, which I don't know. You come to your own conclusion. What is the difference of accidental and overdose? I don't know. Maybe because then there was others classified as suicide by overdose. So I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to get into it, but the amount of wrestlers that died as a result of addiction was just staggering, and the age they did. So I started doing some research on why these addictions were so prevalent in the wrestling industry. And then one answer was very resounding. It is the need to stay on top. The need to stay on top. Late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s are the main years that we're going to look at, because those were brutal to be a talent. Wrestling was skyrocketing. Wrestling was skyrocketing. Vince McMahon had strapped a rocket to it, and it was growing in popularity, where now these wrestlers were making good money. The top wrestlers were making really good money, were becoming stars, movie stars, whatever. And everyone wanted to be a wrestler. especially when we got to the Attitude Era, where the popularity I think peaked for WWE, then WWF, for me anyway. And at that time, it was a rough time to be a talent because, from what I understand, the company you work for did not take care of you. If you were an indie wrestler, I mean, that's tough enough, but you're on TV, the company's making millions upon millions a year, but you get hurt, you're on your own. And that is crazy to me because a lot of these wrestlers who needed to take time off never did. You're on the road 360, let's call it 360 days to be generous. Have 5 days off. That's the generosity. 360 days a year. You have to perform at your peak level for the fans, for your boss to stay on top. How are you going to do that if you're hurt? If you're hurting, if your leg is hurt, if your neck is hurt, if your shoulders hurt, if you got a concussion protocol, you're not. So you medicate. And that's what I found out a lot of these wrestlers were doing. And it's no secret, of course. There's tons of information on it. Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels are very famous examples of it. Shawn Michaels hurt his back against The Undertaker in the casket match. Very famous footage of him flipping over the ropes, hitting his back at the edge of the casket. And he still had a few more programs to work. He was the champion, he was on top. So you start self medicating. You have to get there, you have to perform. And Triple H says it's the best that nobody knew but Shawn how much pain he was in during that match with Steve Austin, where he lost the title and he took the hiatus. Shawn Michaels finds Jesus. It was his road to recovery. A lot of people find Jesus as a road to recovery. More power to him. A lot of people do it other ways. But then you go to the case of Kurt Angle, where by the time Kurt Angle got in and they realized he had a problem, what was it, 100 and something pills a day? 90 or close to 100 pills a day, something like that. A day. I take 4 Advil a day and I freak out. That is insane. But he did it because he had to stay at peak performance. Coming into the WWE with already weak neck, broken neck from the Olympics, everybody knows that. Hurts his neck against Brock Lesnar, has to stay on top. Starts taking pills. Perk Angle, I believe, was his nickname. And he did it to stay on top. He was released by the WWE because he refused to get help. Because at that point, the WWE started realizing, oh, all these guys are addicted and they're dying. Eddie Guerrero, years of drug abuse, weakened his heart, dies in a hotel in Minneapolis. Chris Benoit, a mixture of mental health and steroid abuse, which doesn't do wonders for your mental health, ends up committing one of the most heinous crimes related to wrestling. China goes from being the ninth wonder of the world, breaking barriers, making history, to a terrible scandal that led to her release, depression, adult film industry, just new lows, ends up dying of an overdose at a super young age. Miss Elizabeth, probably the most famous valet, overdose. Kurt Hennig, probably one of the greatest technical wrestlers from here, Minnesota, overdose. Cocaine. Lance Cade. All of these young talents with so much life gone too soon. A lot of it as a result of addiction. Because once you're up here and you start going down the mountain of success, you've hit that peak. You don't know what to do with yourself. Some make it though. I mean, look at Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle were able to grasp their lives out and still kind of still kicking there, not kind of kicking, still kicking and after years of addiction. Um, but I mean, look at the talent they were. Look at the popularity they had. Right, one was Shawn Michaels, the other Kurt Angle. You know, they're never gonna do gym shows. I don't think. You know, they're never gonna perform for anyone less than 1,000 people. So there's a pattern there. There's absolutely a pattern there. And some get lucky. I mean, Jim Hellwig, the Ultimate Warrior, steroids for years, self-admitted, and then dies in a hotel lobby after a big night, weak in heart attack. Was it steroids? Who knows? That one they attributed to a cardiac arrest. So it was just interesting to see how many wrestlers were affected by addiction and died so young. And a lot of them say heart failure, but when you dive deeper, like Umaga, um, heart failure, but due to drug addiction. And you want to point out a villain. I know John Oliver's piece on this clearly has a villain, and that villain is WWE and Vince McMahon in the 90s and early 2000s, where, he basically denies and refuses to take any kind of responsibility for the deaths of these wrestlers who gave everything in his ring, including some of them, including their lives. And he treats them like they're just expendable and replaceable in his eyes. They're just talent that he pays to come do a job and then they're gone. And that's the picture they paint of Vince McMahon in this documentary. And for the most part, it's true. It's true. Obviously, there other people are going to have different opinions of the man, but it's not looking too good because, of course, other wrestlers died for other reasons, car accidents, tragically own heart, right? Fell from the rafters. But addiction was one of the main ones. And like I said, I decided to do this episode because of my personal connection with it, which I'll get into in a little bit here. I wanted to kind of shift to the south side of the border here. When I was doing research for this episode, of course, trying to get names of the people who have died, the big notable names of people who died due to addiction in pro wrestling here in the United States. When you look at Lucha Libre, it was so interesting to me, and I was actually talking to my mother-in-law about it. Um, and I'll tell you a little about her in a second. She unfortunately couldn't do the episode with me. She was busy, and also it's not an easy topic for her to chat about, and I'll get into that as well. And I was talking to her about something I noticed. So here in the States, pro wrestling, a lot of people, a lot of wrestlers died as a direct cause of addiction. When I was looking for a one luchador whose death was attributed to addiction, I could not find it. I could not find one. Now, maybe I didn't look deep enough. Please leave in the comments if you find one. Um, but I couldn't find a single luchador whose death was attributed to drug addiction. Of course, they could have covered it up. That sort of thing has happened before, but I haven't found one. There was a few notable deaths. El Hijo de Perro Aguayo, he died of an injury in the ring. Silver King, also known as Ramses in the Nacho Libre movie, cardiac arrest, heart failure, but to a pre-existing condition. There was another kid, a younger kid in his 20s, who also died of a heart condition. He got chopped in the chest, fell back. Everybody thought he was selling, never got up. I think I forgot his name, something Azul, and he also attributed to heart failure, nothing to do with um, addiction. And these guys wrestle. But here's the difference that I notice. One, a lot of these guys don't do TV. So if they get hurt, eh, they'll go sit out. They'll come back. It's the mask that has the popularity. The type of wrestling it is, lucha libre, traditionally isn't a lot of big bumps. You're not doing Jeff Hardy and TLC stuff in Mexican wrestling, Mexican lucha libre. You're not doing TLC matches. You're not doing Hell in the Cell. You're not doing casket matches. You're not doing Buried Alive, hardcore, no holds barred. Do they exist? Absolutely. Were they done as frequently as WWE? Not that I remember. Again, opinion. I remember watching Lucha Libre and it was always 3-on-3 unless it was a 1-on-1 for a championship, a mask, or a bet. But it was always 3-on-3. Rarely was there blood. I mean, and there was high flyers. There was high flyers, but the rate that people would get hurt was very, very low. It's not that they were safer. I think Lucha Libre's style is a lot softer on the body, a lot more acrobatic, a lot more. I don't know how to put it, but, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that. Yes, Lucha Libre is hard. I get it. I've done it. It hurts, but it doesn't hurt as much as going through, a cage and having a chair hit you on the face and knock you unconscious, or falling into an announcer's table, or hitting your back on the edge of a casket. Accidents happen, of course, but Lucha Libre doesn't go that hard that often. At least not in the late 80s, especially not in the late 80s and through the 90s. Now, now they're trying to copy WWE a lot more and starting to do those types of matches. Um, and maybe it's their turn. I don't know, right? Maybe it's their turn to have some other guys be addicted because to painkillers because it's starting to get more rough and it's going to be new to them. The WWE and like promotions have learned from their mistakes, I think. They've got wellness policies. They check on their wrestlers. Uh, there's only so much they can do. Like I said, they try to get Cornengo into rehab and you don't want to do it. Jeff Hardy, another perfect example whose demons just constantly keep getting the better of him. So that was an interesting point that I found when I was doing the research and saw the difference. And why don't we see a lot more younger luchadores die? I mean, Fuerza Guerrera, who came to Rudos Promotions, the guy's 73. How many wrestlers do you know are 73? Blue Panther has to be up there. Now, are they performing at their peak? No, but they're still up there in a mask. They're still doing it. You know, there's a lot more older wrestlers that are up there and still doing it. And I think it's because the amount of beatings they take on their body are a lot less and are a lot less hard than the WWE. That level of entertainment is just unreal. It's good, but it's unreal. My friend Jason Rage loves the death matches. I've seen them. Man, are they brutal. They're awesome to watch, but doing that for 10 years is highly unlikely. It's just highly unlikely to do death matches like that for 10 years. More power to you, Jason. I love you. You're one of the best influences I have and one of the good friends I have in the industry. I respect you tons, but I'm just using you as a little example if you ever hear this podcast. And death matches just don't have longevity for that reason because you're beating the hell out of your body for entertainment, and that's awesome. But that's what I noticed as the difference. No death matches in lucha libre, not that I know of anyway. And you have guys like Fuerza Guerrera, Blue Panther still doing it because of that, and a lot less addiction, a lot less need to stay on top, a lot less pressure. Definitely not 360 days a year. Now, are they going to be stars and like WWE caliber stars? No, but they entertain all the same. So let's move on to the more personal side of this episode. Um, when I met my wife, she had told me she her brother was an addict. Um, Now I wasn't too unfamiliar with addiction, having lots of uncles and family members that were alcoholics. So I wasn't too unfamiliar. Now, I've never met anyone with a hardcore drug addiction like my brother in law had. But, that's all I knew. And it really changed my perspective because, like I said, before him, I've never met anyone with a hardcore drug addiction. So I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if for the first time I meet him, he was going to be all strung out and maybe not talk to me or ask me for money. I didn't know. But my brother-in-law was probably one of the kindest souls I've ever met. And obviously, spoiler alert, he's no longer with us. And it was one of those cases that I think my daughters got cheated out of an uncle. That addiction cheated them out of an uncle. And it's one of the things that hurts me the most, that he deserved to meet them. And I know that hurts my wife a lot. That our daughters didn't get to meet their uncle because they would have loved him and he would have loved them. And that's one of the more devastating things, and that this hit so personally for me, because every one of those wrestlers that died has someone. Me and my wife say it all the time when we're driving down University Avenue and we see these people who are clearly on drugs. We look at them and say, there's someone out there that loves that guy or that woman or that boy or that girl. That was somebody's baby, like Max was somebody's baby. That's somebody's brother, sister, uncle, auntie. And that's the devastating piece and the harsh reality of it. Um, I saw what it did to my family, to my wife's family. It tore them down to a deep dark spot that has taken them years to make a little bit of progress to get out. They'll never get out. I don't think you ever get out. You do a little better, but there's things that knock you right back down almost daily. Pictures, stories, just sometimes I look at my little girls and I get angry because they were cheated out of a really good uncle. And You could say like that about anyone, right? Like my grandma, she died. She would have loved to meet my daughters, but my grandma was 80 something years old. My brother in law was 29. He was 29 and he was an uncle that would have loved being an uncle, probably more than anything. And that's the very most devastating fact about this whole thing to me. He had been addicted for years. And I tell my other brother in law when he would tell me stories about um, this particular brother in law, oh, I had this, and I tell this all the time, so it's no secret. He would tell me, oh, we used to have this, but my brother sold it for drugs. I used to have this, but my brother sold it for drugs. That hurt because addiction cheated my brother in law out of an older brother. Addiction cheated my wife out of a younger sibling. And no one sits down to think about that when they look at young people who are addicted and just write them off as junkies. They don't think about that. That there's people out there that love them, that are rooting for them, that are there to help them, but it's so hard. Mental illness itself, it's so hard to combat because sometimes you can throw a million types of help at them and it's just not enough. My brother in law went to rehab after rehab after rehab after rehab, but that guy was such a good person that he can convince you that he was fine. My wife called him a functioning addict, which a lot of people have that. They're able to function in society while being high or on drugs or whatever their vice. And that was my brother in law. And what he had is very common is that when he did give up the hard stuff, when he was sober from the harder stuff, which was heroin, he turned to a different vice, which was alcohol. And when it wasn't that, he was collecting things. So it's always a struggle. It's a constant struggle. The brain wants, if you have addiction, the brain just constantly wants to fill that void with something else. It's what I found out. Whether it be alcohol, more pills, something to alter your brain. He used to find out ways that certain mixtures of tea can get you high. Certain mushrooms can get you high. So I've been told. It was a very devastating death the day that he died. Obviously, it was very sudden. He had been sober for 5 years and he was left alone. And it starts off little by little. This is what I believe. He had been giving hints, not consciously, obviously, but there had been signs that he was using. To me personally, he was talking about getting his friend some drugs. And I think I even asked him, I said, well, dude, how do you stop yourself from using if you used before? And he told me some story that his friend was dying, and if he wanted to give his friend some drugs, it'd be okay because he was dying anyway. It's like, okay, whatever, man. But we never thought that was coming because you always think you're in the clear. And one thing I learned that with addiction, you're never in the clear. You're never in the clear. You're boring moment, you're one smell away, you're one temptation away from relapsing, is what I found. I asked my father in law, who's been a smoker for years, and he quit. And one day I asked him, I said, "Hey, can you take just one drag of a cigarette and that be it?" He said, "If I take a drag of a cigarette, I'll go buy a pack right now and smoke it." That's how real it is, amigos. I don't have an addictive personality to substances. But I know, I mean, like I said before, my brother, um, he's sober now, I think 3 years, 4 years, going on five. And unfortunately, it took two run-ins with the law and some troubles to get him on the right path. And sometimes even that's not enough for some people. So, my mother-in-law, one of the strongest people I have met, one of the most forgiving, kind-hearted people I have met. The day her son died, I saw her crumble like I've never seen anyone crumble before. My father-in-law, my wife, my brother-in-law, devastated. And like I said before, you never really get over it. You never really dig yourself out, no matter what. You do a little better. You can get knocked down at any point in time. I've seen it. My mother in law started a foundation. She wanted to help other people. She's a very huge advocate now to help other people struggling with addiction, especially fentanyl addiction. She has been behind the installment of Narcan machines. Um, I know she started a foundation, Maximum Awareness, and we were at the Minnesota State Fair for a while, um, handing out information on that. She has been in connection with partners like Rumler's Hope or Steve's Hope, Steve Rumler Hope, or something like that. Um, we were an honorary family at the Steve Rumler Foundation dinner. We were interviewed. I mean, it was some of the toughest things you do, right? But you do it for awareness because every day you remember. You do. So I want you to do something if you listen to these podcasts. If you have a certain opinion about addiction and drug use, more specifically drug use, and before you thought they were just junkies and a scum of society that we need to eradicate, please, I beg you, reconsider your opinion and try to remind yourself that if you don't know anyone who is addicted, a close loved one, how lucky you are. Because until it happens to you, you will never know what the struggle is. You may have babies now, but what if they grow up and they become addicted to a substance? Are you going to look at them as junkies? Please support your loved ones if they are struggling with addiction the best you can. Some of them need tough love. Some of them need a good ass kicking. Some of them need pure love, a companion to go to a meeting, a place to stay where they feel loved. Whatever you can do. It's just all I ask. Because one day, I hope not, it could be someone you love out there. And you never know. Amigos, that has been episode 4. I wish I had my mother-in-law here to talk more about it and her personal side. Obviously, I didn't want to get too much into the details um, of my brother-in-law and things like that, or didn't want to talk for my mother-in-law. But it's a reality of it, and the fact that it impacts the very thing I love, which is wrestling and lucha libre, and then you can connect it to your personal life. That so many people were just taken way too soon. You know, is why I had to talk about it. And then maybe it shouldn't have been episode 4. Maybe it should have been episode 45. I don't know. But I was looking for things to talk about. I wish I had someone to discuss it with, but whatever. I hope this episode helped you in any shape, way, or form. If you have any questions, concerns, leave a comment, reach out to me. Um, I believe here, let me cheat a little bit. YouTube.com/ at el underscore nocturno underscore luchador, Facebook.com/ el nocturno mn, and then the Twitch channel should be up and running. I know there's an Instagram out there somewhere. I just don't know what it's called right now. I think it's El Único Nocturno or something like that. But I'll get it to you guys. But please follow my YouTube, leave a comment, email me. Uh, I can look it up, my email. Sorry, guys, I'm not very good at this. I'll give it to you guys later. I'll put it in the description below, okay? Um, be sure to listen to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcast and YouTube. Thanks a lot for listening from El Panteon. I am El Nocturno. Stay tuned for episode 5. We are going to have a guest speaker, none other than El Rey Malvado, who just made his Lucha Libre debut, and we're going to talk about it, and it's going to be amazing. Buenas noches, amigos. Yo soy El Nocturno.